What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Play Pause Rewind. This is our 20th episode, which is super exciting for us. It means we have been doing this show for 40 weeks. We're almost at a full year of doing this show. So thank you to everyone who has come along for this ride with us so far. I know there's some growing pains with new shows, but we're having a lot of fun, and I think we both hope you are as well. So a little pat on the back for ourselves for making it to 20 episodes.
Yeah, good job, Dylan. Yeah, we made it.
Yeah, good job.
I feel like
there's
a lot of Thank you. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely some podcasts that, started during the pandemic and have probably petered out by now. And we're still going strong. We're still doing this every 2 weeks, and more to come, hopefully. And yeah, this week we're talking about James Bond.
Yes.
No Time to Die.
The long-awaited No Time to Die, the final entry in Daniel Craig's James Bond run. Delayed for over a year. The initial release date was October 8th of 2020, and due to obvious reasons, it now came out October 8th of 2021. So...
Yeah, that time jump, that was, I think that added to just my confusion of the film, but we'll get into that in a later. But yeah, that was a long time to wait for this film to come out.
It was, and it's been a long time since the previous one, as you alluded to. I saw Spectre in London studying abroad, so that was in fall of 2015 when that came out, I think. So it's been a little... Or maybe 2016. I don't remember. 2016. Yeah, it's been a bit. It's the point. But as always, we will do non-spoilers for a few minutes, and then we'll jump into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, feel free to duck out then, come back later. We don't want to ruin the movie for you, especially seeing as this is Craig's final entry as the character. So, Niles, are you a James Bond fan overall? What's your level of familiarity with the franchise?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start off. I mean, I am a casual fan, is what I will say. I don't mind the films. I enjoy them when I watch them, especially the Daniel Craig ones, because those are the ones that we grew up with, so we know them pretty well, and or at least we appreciate the character that Daniel Craig has brought to the screen. And I've definitely watched some of the older ones. Like I believe I've watched like some of those older Sean Connery ones. And those ones are just such a trip compared to the modern day ones.
Yeah.
They're like so stiff and rigid. But I mean, I'm a casual fan. I'd say I'm probably more of like, there's within the Secret Spy world, I feel like I'm definitely more of an expert on Austin Powers. Back in the day, I didn't have things to do sometimes, so I would just rewatch old movies, and I've seen the second Austin Powers way too many times.
You know what Daniel Craig said about Austin Powers in relation to James Bond?
What's that?
And I quote, "They fucked it." They had to... Basically, the parody was so effective that when they returned to the drawing board for Bond, they had to do what they did with Casino Royale, because the Brosnan ones had gotten so ridiculous, and Austin Powers' parody of it had gone so well that they had to go back to the drawing board and make it more grounded.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. I mean, yeah, it's such a good parody of it, but I mean, yeah, that had its time in the sun, and now I'd never want to see another Austin Powers film ever again. But what about you, Dylan? Are you a James Bond fan?
I am. I'd say I'm still in the casual realm, less so than you are. I had one of the DVD box sets when I was a kid, and the way they organized them was like one or two from each of the actors would be in the box set. So I think I watched Goldfinger a lot. The World Is Not Enough, The Man with the Golden Gun are the ones I remember most from when I was little. And then The Living Daylights I also watched. There were a couple others here and there, but I can't remember them as well. But, of course, the Daniel Craig era is the one I am most familiar with and most fond of, I think. It's crazy to think Casino Royale came out when I was 12. Like, it's been 15 years of Daniel Craig James Bond movies, and it's weird. Like, this is the end of it, and it's kind of like the end of an era. Like, I was a little kid when that started, and now I'm not. So it's just...
Yeah, time has passed.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're old people, and we're older people.
Our bodies are breaking. We're old. We go to bed before 11 o'clock at night. Times have changed. But No Time to Die.
Changed.
Yes. No Time to Die, though, it's Daniel Craig's final film. It's directed by Cary Joji Fukunaga, who many will know as the director of the first season of True Detective, which I maintain might be the best thing to ever be on television. There is some competition for that, but I think True Detective Season 1 is at least one of the best things television has ever produced.
Oh, yes, 100%.
As soon as he was announced, I was pretty hyped for this movie. I know the Daniel Craig run for a lot of people has been kind of a mixed bag. I overall have really enjoyed it. How do you feel about his film run overall as this character?
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think overall he's done a really good job with the character, and he really kind of brought a sense of like realism to it as well, because James Bond used to be known for these like really bad puns, that they would kind of workshop in. There were these tropes that were like set in stone, like James Bond is a womanizer and he like uses them as sex objects, and like he always just beats the villain of the week every time, and there's no like repercussions of that. And with this series, with this 5-film arc, Daniel Craig and the whole writing team too, like everyone who's involved with this did a really great job, I think, with all these films. But they created a different 007 who is like entirely his own, entirely unique, I'd say, very different than the ones that we've seen before. And they also started to build continuity into the James Bond universe.
And that's an element of this too that I think is important for people to know. If you don't like the continuity of the Daniel Craig movies, you will not be happy with this, I don't think, because it leans on it quite a lot. And I appreciate the continuity for this go around to the character. So I thought it led to a very emotional payoff in this movie. But if you don't like it, or you don't like the direction they took the story, this might not work for you, because especially regarding Spectre, it leans on previous storylines and characters a lot. It's a very big part of this movie. And if you don't have that background knowledge, or you don't like those character beats, it's not going to land in the same way, I don't think.
Well, yeah, and I would hope that, anyone's going to see No Time to Die was at least caught up with the, the saga. Like, you don't need to watch all of the James Bond movies going back to Sean Connery, but, like, you should at least know the last 4, or at least have seen them once, which I did. But, it's like, why would you go see this movie if you didn't know the story thus far?
Right. Well, and at this point with the Daniel Craig movies, yeah, because it's been pretty established up until this point that this is a continuous through line, unlike previous iterations of Bond, where something might carry over every once in a while, a character here and there, but they're mostly standalones. Not so with this. And I'm fine with that. I just think we should call it out for people who are not fine with that.
Yeah, right. Of course. But yeah, speaking of kind of like that multi-year gap that we were just talking about, I think, I am in that boat because I've only seen like each one of these movies once. Like, I probably watched them once when they came out, and I was like, okay, I never need to see that again. Not that they were bad. They were, entertaining films. But, there's multiple years that are occurring between each one of these films for Daniel Craig's James Bond. Like you were saying, the last one came out in 2015 or 2016, one of the two.
16, I think.
And here we are, it's 2021. I don't have the worst memory, but, sometimes I'm a little fuzzy on what happened to me 6 years ago,
Yeah.
And I think, just the fact that there was all these kind of multi-year gaps between the films, I think that kind of made it difficult for me, at least, to remember everything. Like, who were all the characters? Like, what were all the major plot points? Like, I guess I could remember some of it, but, like, even at the opener, not to spoil too much, but James Bond goes and visits the grave of his first love interest, Vesper. Right, I'm getting that name right, Vesper?
Yeah, you're getting it right.
And I was like, I remember hearing some other woman in the theater like whisper over to her husband, like, "Who is that?" And I was like, kind of in the same boat.
God, that family
yeah,
sitting
I don't
next to us
remember.
in the theater was really pissing me off. They would not shut up for the first 20 minutes of the movie. It was really bothering me. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, in fairness too, though, you could have rewatched them if you wanted to.
Yes.
Like that's not I don't think it's necessarily a flaw of like the final movie in a 5-movie arc that you didn't remember a character from the first movie. And I'm not saying you did anything wrong, you didn't, but like the movies are there
But yeah,
to review if you want to.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. The source material's there, the movies are there. I could have gone back and rewatched these films, and maybe I will one day, and I'll find some newfound appreciation from, all the ways that they tied the plot together. And, it's kind of like, I feel like you're not going to just rewatch the third Lord of the Rings film. You're going to rewatch all 3 of them because you want the context. You want to watch the entire story, and you want to take it all in.
Yeah.
And, that's like a 9-hour journey. This is Daniel Craig 007. That's kind of probably a little bit longer. But,
yeah. And it is a lot of it is all tied together in Spectre, and the way that it was all tied together was a little bit of a stretch. It's just like Blofeld at the end tells him, and this is spoilers for Spectre, not this movie, but he's just like, I did all of this to you. Like, I authored all of your pain. And it's like, really? You did? Because some of these things felt a little not connected, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal to me. I like Spectre fine enough. Most people don't. But I thought, and overall, I like the Daniel Craig run too. I think the weakest one is Quantum of Solace, but Quantum of Solace was also being made during the writer's strike with Daniel Craig and the movie's director like making script edits themselves on set. And so considering that, not bad.
yeah, if you're writing the movie on set,
and you're not a writer.
Yeah, good on you. So remind me, it goes. What's the order of the films?
Casino Royale. Casino Royale's first.
Gotcha.
And that is the one where Lashif, Mads Mikkelsen, is the villain, and Vesper is from that movie, and she dies at the end of it. Quantum of Solace functions as a direct sequel to Casino Royale. It picks up immediately after. That is where, and at the end of Casino Royale, Bond captures Mr. White, who is Madeline's father. That comes back into play later on. And then Quantum of Solace happens, Skyfall happens, Judi Dench M dies in that, is replaced by Ralph Fiennes M. And then there is Spectre, which is when Blofeld is introduced, who is Bond's adoptive brother. And he has a lot of obsession about cuckoos because he sees Bond as a cuckoo for him. Because what that bird does is it lays its eggs in another bird's nest, and then the other mother bird feeds the cuckoo chick instead of its baby. And so that's why Blofeld hates James Bond. And then, that one ends with Bond and Madeline driving off into the sunset together to live like a life, which is where we pick up in No Time to Die. They're doing that at the start of the movie. And Bond has retired from MI6, which is, so that's where we are. And I think overall he had a pretty good run. I think this was a great finale to his run as the character. I hope to see in the next go-around maybe abandon the interconnected continuity again. Just to go back to standalones for a little bit, mix it back up by going back to formula, if you will. But yeah, I mean, great swan song for Daniel Craig's run.
I mean, absolutely. And I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of that, like later in the episode, we will do like a fan cast for who we would like to see next as the next Bond, because of course they're going to make another James Bond. But also, just kind of, I just had this idea as you were talking about that. If they kind of return to that whole formulaic thing, I think it'd be kind of cool if it was just one-off James Bond films where it's just like you get one James Bond and then it moves on to the next James Bond and then it moves on to the next James Bond. Like
so, like a different actor each time. You mean?
Right. So you could still have like something that's like really like a dynamic story and something that's interesting, but you could also get like a more diverse kind of
Sampling.
some more diverse stories. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. I also wouldn't mind seeing a period piece. Like Bond started decades ago.
Yeah.
Maybe we have Bond in the 60s or the 70s or something again. And just, I think, and I want to talk about this more in the fan casting part, so we'll come back to this.
We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, put a pin in it. Action scenes. I thought there were a lot of really fun ones. There's one in the trailer with a motorcycle where he kind of rides it up a staircase and jumps over a little wall. Good Bond action stuff. Nothing to complain about there, in my mind.
Yeah.
And
and I feel like I saw some kind of cool callbacks there too. Like, I don't know. I feel like maybe it was the first one in this series or the second one. I feel like there was like a chase scene on some kind of aqueduct or something like that. And then in this movie, there was kind of a similar opening chase sequence in that kind of Romanesque town that they were in. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that they had that visual parallel in there. But yeah, I feel like the action scenes were great. That whole, not to spoil it too much, but the forest scene was phenomenal. I thought that was really fun.
Oh, the forest scene is great. Yeah.
And I like you were saying, I liked the continued dynamics between like the supporting cast. Like Q was great.
Moneypenny.
What was her name?
Moneypenny
was great. They're all just fun, and even Felix. It was nice to see Felix back. He's always a fun character.
He's Bond's CIA counterpart for those who are fuzzy on memory there, and it's not a spoiler. He's in the trailer. We know Felix is in the movie, or you should know that.
Right, exactly. And I really like the opening song too by Billie Eilish. I thought that was
I agree.
That was neat how they kind of like take these like current artists like they did with Adele, now with Billie, and it's like I thought she did a great job with that song overall.
I agree. In terms of just overall Cliff Notes quality of this in relation to the other Craig films, I think this is kind of in the middle for me. Casino Royale is the best one, I think. And Skyfall beats this one out a little bit, but I think this is better than Quantum and Spectre. Both great movie, great final entry for this series.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I was saying, my memory's a little hazy on all the other films, so I think I'll just kind of go with your ranking for it because I don't know. I feel like some of the James Bond films they can kind of blend together for me. But I really like this film. I thought it was a good send-off, just like you were saying. I also appreciated there were some good humorous little bits in there too, small puns that weren't like super on the nose, just like a little bit, but they weren't like huge groaners. It was just like they were clever the way they used humor in this movie too.
Totally. I think that's good for non-spoilers. Oh, one last thing, I guess. It is a very long movie. Didn't feel its length at all to me, though. I think the pacing was spot on, and it moved at a clip the entire way through. So good on that. Oh, go for it.
The only other thing I'll say is just I feel like I do have some complaints with the film, but we'll get more into that in spoilers.
Okay.
Nothing like super severe because like overall I really enjoyed it.
Same.
Just like smaller things, I'd say.
Okay. Real quick to interject. Did you clap sync at the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I'm keeping that in. Let's do spoilers. Spoiler time. So, the plot. There's a lot going on here. So the plot centers around a figure from Madeline Swan's past stealing a bioweapon developed by M and the MI6. And so Bond is pulled out of retirement by Felix Leiter to help him get this guy who's related to the bioweapon. And all of this is after a 5-year time jump from the beginning of the movie where Bond and Madeline are in Italy, I think, and Bond goes to visit Vesper's grave and gets blown up and suspects Madeline betrayed him in some way. So as you can see, it's very steeped in the lore of the Craig Bond era, and it continues the trend that these films have had from Casino Royale onward. So, Yeah, there are a lot of balls being juggled here in this movie, but somehow I think it manages to execute on almost all of them pretty flawlessly. And the one that I don't think it executes on perfectly is Remy Malek's villain, which I'll get more into in a little bit. Did you know, though, the villain's name is Lucifer? Like Lucifer. Spelled L-Y-U... Yes. Lucifer Safin.
That's a little too on the nose, guys.
They don't, in fairness, like, they don't say it in the movie. They just call him Safin, I think.
Well, yeah, I don't even really remember his name. I was just like, it's the villain in my head. Like, I didn't know his name.
Should we just talk about him real quick? You want?
Let's talk about,
Yeah, I think the performance was really good. Remy Malek did a good job.
Yeah.
The imagery of that white, that like porcelain doll looking mask was really upsetting.
It was gorgeous. You know, it was like, it kind of like reminded me of like, I don't know, the Zodiac Killer or something. Like something that's just like so just sterile and like you have no idea who's underneath, but like it's still presenting this very just menacing image. So I really like the mask. It's just, you know, I wish he wore it more in the film because it just kind of felt like here's something at the start and we're never going to touch on it again until one scene.
It's never elaborated on what the mask is meant to be or if he's part of an organization or anything like that, which I think plays into my overall feeling on his character is that he was more there as a vehicle to motivate the other characters in the story because his motivation was all over the place. He like wanted revenge for a while. Then he became in love, more obsessed with Madeline Swan, but then he also wanted to use this bioweapon for something. Did he specify exactly what he wanted with that, or was he just going to use it?
My understanding was he was selling it to just countries or anyone who wanted to commit genocide.
Okay.
And he was just kind of okay with it because he's like, that's just the way the world works. And it's like, what are you... I would agree. His motivation was all over the place. Like, you know, I don't think that he was as good of a villain as like Christoph Waltz was.
Okay.
In the last film, because like he was just like even with that tie-in at the end of being like, I orchestrated everything. All of your pain is my fault.
Yeah.
You know, I think that he was still a little bit better of a villain because like it actually kind of made sense why he was so cold and calculated. He was at the top of this organization that we had like some knowledge of, and then Rami Malek's character comes in on this movie, and he's just kind of there.
Yeah, I did enjoy the element though where the reason he enters the story at all is because Madeline Swan's dad, Mr. White, killed his family when he was a kid, I guess. And so he hates Spectre. And I did think the scene where he just wipes out all of Spectre at that party with the bioweapon was pretty effective at hyping him as a threat. And I don't think he quite lived up to that at any point later in the movie. I did enjoy that by the end of it, he's just like kind of a petty little shit who is like, well, I'm not going to win, but I'm going to make sure you don't either. And we'll get more into that in a bit. But his introduction scene with little kid Madeline in the cabin where he's like orbiting the house and looking, and then he follows her on the lake, great. But
Yes, 100%.
Also, how old is he supposed to be? Because he was an adult when she was a kid, right? But he only looks like Remy Malek during the main timeline of the movie.
Yeah, that's not very clear to me, and and I mean they don't need to explain his facial scars. Like they don't need to explain that. That's fine.
I think they did. It's
they did.
Yeah, the attack that killed his family did that to him, I think. I think
you're right.
I think you see a picture of like the whole family or something, and all their faces are like that, and he just survived. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, because I was about to just complain because I didn't get a clear message on that, and clearly I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think honestly, I can understand if people have complaints about this villain. He's like probably my biggest complaint is that I would have liked to see more of him throughout the film. I would have liked like just more agency from him, I would say. But at the same time, I feel like this movie is more about James Bond, about finishing his character, about saying, this is who he is, this is his story. We're not talking about the villain. We're talking about James Bond and in his world and what he does.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I mentioned earlier that the movie was juggling a lot of balls, and this is the one I think it didn't execute on as well as the others.
Yes.
So I'm fine with that because I found the rest of the movie so satisfying. So I think we're good. It's okay.
Yeah, I think so overall. And I think when he was on screen, he did kind of seem very menacing. Mm-hmm. He was calculated, cold, and you could still feel some like logical side of him. But he was still a psychopath, very clearly.
Right.
But I don't know. He kind of felt a little humanized, a little kind of in the way that Thanos was. Like you could understand what his reasoning was a little bit. But not really. Yeah, the
through his like twisted logic, there was like a train of thought he had. But I enjoyed his lair a lot. I enjoyed the way he carries himself throughout. I think he had a good presence. I just don't think his motivation was that consistent, or I just didn't know what he wanted other than to like wreak havoc on James Bond. Or more specifically, Madeline. Madeline Swan, I guess, is where he is really concerned. But yeah, so unrelated to him, kind of. It was great to see Felix Leiter back. Jeffrey Wright returns. He was first. I think the Felix Leiter character is a mainstay of Bond throughout the movies and books, but this iteration was introduced alongside Daniel Craig in Casino Royale, and he's been a great side character in my mind in that and Quantum of Solace, and now this sucked, man. He died. It was really sad. But
yeah, the stupid goddamn FBI American agent had to just go and fucking shoot him. Yeah, that's some bullshit. I mean, I think it was absolutely necessary for the film for him to die.
I do.
Know?
Yes.
If Felix had survived all the way to the end and he had a drink with the rest of MI6, like it just wouldn't have been as emotionally impactful. So I agree. Think it was a well-earned death, but yeah, it made me hate that FBI agent, and it made me really happy when he died later.
When Bond crushes him with a car.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, I think the death of Felix is really one. It really introduced an element of vulnerability to the characters in the movie, which is necessary for this story, and also it added to the finality because they're killing off one of the kind of bigger side characters from this version of the character. So it started to feel like we were getting to the end of the book, if you look at it that way. Sort of the pieces were being taken off the board. And I mean, I love Jeffrey Wright. He's a great actor. So it was good to see him back.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And, you know, with James Bond films, I feel like so consistently, at least historically with all these films, you know, it's like, it is basically a formulaic film where it's like James Bond gets introduced. He has these cool gadgets. He has like a side team who gives him the gadgets and is supporting him. And he seduces some woman. And then he stops the evil guy. And bada bing, bada boom. Nobody's dead. Everything's fine. The world is safe. And, you know, that's all well and good. But, you know, I want a movie that has higher stakes. I want a movie that has... where I feel like the characters have something to lose, and it's not just like, oh yeah, we're gonna win in the end because we're the good guys. We're the Americans. Like we're the white guy. Like it's like, come on, let's get that colonialist shit out of the way, and let's acknowledge that the real world exists. People die, and you know, it's nice that like you were saying, yeah, it feels final, it feels conclusive, and Felix's death is just kind of like a good cherry on top to like add some emotional weight to that.
Yeah, that is an interesting element. I try to separate the real world from my experience with these movies, I think, because like
Sure.
the MI6 in the real world apparently are complete fools who spent decades basically chasing ghosts that they made up themselves to justify their budget. And the CIA spent decades destabilizing South America and the Middle East. So we're not the good guys, but in these movies, we are. That's okay. But you gotta separate those just a bit. But
yeah, funny how intelligence in the real world is so goddamn confusing and
manufactured
like
a lot of the time.
Exactly. Nowhere it's manufactured and it's nothing like it is in Hollywood. It's who would have thought?
Yeah. Yeah, the spy fantasy is largely fiction, which makes sense. But yeah, so Felix exits the picture, but before he dies, we are introduced to Ana de Armas' character, Paloma, who was both she and the sequence she was in, I think, are pretty stand out. It was a lot of fun. Bond, Felix introduces Bond to his contact, and the two of them sort of infiltrate this Spectre party, and there's like a Blofeld digital eye that's like being carried around the party, which is very Bond, very funny. And but the sequence was just a lot of fun. Like it devolves into a shootout because Lucifer or whatever poisons all the Spectre agents, which is a great twist on the whole sequence. And then a shootout starts because of course it does. We also have 007 doing her thing, trying to get the target that Bond and Paloma are after, because Bond at this point is working for Felix, not the MI6. So, but it was just so fun because Paloma and Bond are just shooting all these people and then stopping for a drink, taking a shot, jumping over a counter, taking a shot, taking more, like shooting more guys, and just great back and forth. And I mean, we get to see even more of these two actors have a back and forth in Knives Out, which was released after this was filmed, which it makes a lot more sense why Ana de Armas is in this movie for like 10 minutes because it came out made before Knives Out was finished.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting parallel. I think you told me about that when we were leaving the movie theater. I was like, oh, who's that actress? Oh, her.
Yeah.
Knives Out. Oh, right. But yeah, I thought, that action sequence was seriously phenomenal. I think that was one of the better ones of the film. I mean, all the action sequences were great, of course, but this one really stood out in my mind. The shootout in Havana, because there was a lot going on, and that was definitely one of the more humorous parts of the film, where it's just like, yeah, let's just drink casually while we're killing people, like whatever, like we got this.
And
they're a bunch of idiots.
And just really, really fun sequence overall. Very James Bond tonally, I think. Very classic.
Yeah.
Classics, like, I can down all these drinks and still be a super effective spy. That is James Bond to a T, I think.
He's smooth, he's suave, and like, I honestly felt like they had really good chemistry too. Like if I didn't know that Madeline was already like his love interest, it would be like, oh, I bet she'll come back into the picture like in 50 minutes down the road, and they'll fall in love really quickly at the end. But
I think James Bond also thought that because he thought she was making moves on him, and he was down for it because at this point he and Madeline are not together, and he's just like, okay, I mean, why not? Let's do it.
It's like, whatever. I got nothing to live for, but but yeah, I thought she did a great job, Ana de Armas, and I would like to see it, like, more of her.
I agree.
She wasn't in this film a lot, but I would like, if they continue down this kind of continuity path for James Bond, please bring her back into the picture. I would love that.
And even if they don't, the Bond franchise has a history of carrying forward the supporting actors between Bonds. Like, Judi Dench started playing M in the Pierce Brosnan era and continued into the Daniel Craig era. They could very easily do that again with Ana de Armas. I think they should do that with Ben Winshaw's Q. And shit. What's Moneypenny's actress name? Sorry. Oh, Naomi Harris is Moneypenny and Ray Fiennes M. I think those characters should continue on. And, but if they kept the same continuity and 007 Nomi is the new protagonist, for instance, which is an option they could do, Ana de Armas could be her Felix, sort of, her CIA op counterpart that they team up with every once in a while. That would be fun.
Yeah, 100% down for that. Well, you mentioned the new 007.
Yeah, that's a great segue, wasn't it? It was almost like I did it intentionally.
Yeah, excellent segue. Wow. It's almost like you planned it.
I did.
But yeah, we get introduced to a new 007 in this film because Daniel Craig's James Bond has left MI6. He's retired, and her name was Nomi, correct?
Nomi, yes, played by Lashana Lynch, who you may recognize from Captain Marvel and other things, but she played Maria Rambeau in Captain Marvel. And I think she was great. What did you think?
I think as well she was great. I think she was one of the best choices that you could have made for that role because, once... I think it was just kind of playing a little bit too with what people are suspecting now, who's going to be the next James Bond, and they just kind of made a executive decision like we're putting a woman in there right now just to get that going, get that thought brewing, and I liked that, of course, but I think
and predictably certain people on the internet lost their minds when they found out that one a woman, two a black woman was playing 007, and everyone with a brain was like, you remember in the last movie when James Bond retired, right? Like, the MI6 would fill his role with another person, and that's who this person is. You fucking dipshit. And yes, I'm calling every single person who was upset by the presence of this character, you are a dipshit. If this is you, you're stupid, and you should feel bad.
Welcome to Play, Pause, Rewind, the podcast where we insult half of our listeners. Half of them, just the listeners who don't listen.
Yeah, I hope no one who listens to this felt that way. Which, congratulations if you didn't. Welcome to the show. But I liked how at the beginning of the relationship between her and Bond, like they were kind of at odds. They were set up as almost adversaries for a time, but then as soon as Bond comes back into the fold with MI6, they're in sync. Like, they're on the same page. They're doing the missions together. I enjoyed that a lot. They very easily could have just made them, like, rivals throughout the whole thing. And I'm kind of glad they didn't.
Me too. I mean, I appreciated, like, a light rivalry like they had, at the start, like you were saying. I thought that was neat. And I really liked her introduction, too, because I thought, honestly, before she took off her hairpiece... It was just like another woman who was really attracted to James Bond, and it was like, wow, he's so swell. Like, I didn't see it coming, is what I'm saying. I didn't see that reveal coming, and I think that goes to show why a woman, James Bond, would work really well, because people like me didn't see that shit coming.
Yeah. It was there was a great joke, too, when she takes off the hairpiece, and he's just like, that's not the first thing I thought you would take off.
Yeah.
It was fun.
One of those good little jokes. That's perfect in there. Yeah. And I thought she did such a good job with it. Like, I assume that she's British, so I can't comment on the accent.
I don't know.
Yeah. But she did a great job with that. And what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just I was just remembering the part towards the end where the guy they're trying to get was like, I could wipe out your entire race without this bioweapon. She's like, fuck you, and just pushes him into the acid.
Yeah. Spartan kicks him to his death.
Yeah, it's just like, guy, what were you thinking? One, horribly racist, but two, she has a gun, and you're standing over a river of acid or whatever that you helped make. What are you doing, man? Yeah. What are you doing?
Like, your bargaining position right now is none. You have no leverage.
Negative bargaining power. And you're just
digging yourself a hole.
Yeah, but I enjoy that the rivalry is there at first, and there's a back and forth about 00 what did you reinstate him as 00 what, but they're professionals, like both of them. So when they're on the mission, they're on the mission, and they're not bickering or squabbling. They're like in step and allies, and I like that. I think that was a good way to write the two characters together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I was, when we were watching the film, I was kind of like, I was hoping that they would tell us what that 00 number was. But I'm glad that they didn't, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would just kind of associate more meaning to another number, and we don't really want that. We want it to stay. The central focus is on James Bond. I don't want to know if there's a 009 or a 003. Like, I don't need to know all that.
Well, and I think it's 009 in GoldenEye. That's Sean Bean is 009 or 006 or hold on.
He was numbered though.
Sean Bean, 00. He was 006. Yeah, he was the villain of that movie. Like, he and Bond are on a mission together at the beginning, and Bond thinks he got killed, but he didn't, and so he hates Bond because he thinks he abandoned him, and he turns on MI6 and all that. But yeah, but you're right. Like, if they'd made Bond 006 in this movie, all of a sudden people who are in the know are thinking about Sean Bean from GoldenEye, and you don't want that type of association going on when it's not intentional.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job with that, and yeah, I think just the character dynamic between 007 and the new 007 was great.
Yes, and we've touched on it, and we may talk about it more in the fan casting thing, but if they decided to do this, and I'm 99% sure they are not going to decide to do this, but they could decide not to make a new James Bond and carry on this continuity with a different 007. I think that's viable. I don't think that would be a popular decision amongst a lot of people, but I would be okay with it. So,
me too. Yeah, me too. And yeah, we'll get more into that in the fan casting part of it. But yeah, we've kind of talked about Blofeld earlier too, and we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about him.
No, not much to say.
But yeah, exactly. Not much to say about Christoph Waltz. I mean, he slays every single role he's ever in. Like, he's such a good actor, and he always plays such a menacing villain too. I love that. And I really liked him in Spectre too. I thought he was a good villain in that. So it was nice to see him kind of come back and be actually a pretty central part of this plot.
Minor but important. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that sequence gave me a lot of anxiety because we know Madeline is given the like specific nanobot poison thing by Safin, because he wants Blofeld dead, because he wants all of Spectre dead. And she doesn't really want to do it, but if she doesn't, he's going to kill Bond, is kind of the stake that we're given. And I forgot that Blofeld and Bond were only adoptive siblings. So when Bond touched her wrist, I was like, oh shit, that's not good. And it still ends up not being good, but for a reason different than I expected.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I like that. Like, that was an anxious scene. Yeah, I felt like as it went on, I was like, when's it gonna happen? When's he gonna touch him? Like, is he gonna kill him? But ultimately he does transfer the nanobot thing, and Spectre is completely eliminated.
Yep. And that was the first time Madeline and Bond had seen each other in 5 years at this point in the movie, which I thought their reunion was pretty good. And I bought. Do you buy their relationship? Because I'm fine with it, but most people are not fans from what I've read.
I buy it. I don't think it's like the best chemistry. I think that you were telling me about like, I don't remember it as clearly as you do, but like his chemistry with
Vesper, Eva Green.
Vesper, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, this doesn't hold a candle to that relationship.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I also don't know if it's meant to, but yeah.
Well, I still think it's good, and I think the fact that, or those final scenes in the film, where she's saying goodbye to Bond, I don't know, that kind of started to tug at my heartstrings a little bit. That was kind of impactful, and in that moment, I absolutely bought that they were a couple and that they were in love. And I think the kid element too, that kind of added something else to the story that made me a little bit more inclined to believe that they were a good couple. That there
Yes.
was that I bought them.
I think the addition of the kid works. And did you have anything else you wanted to say about Blofeld? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no.
Okay.
We didn't need to talk about it very long.
Okay. Yeah. But carrying on that subject, I think the kid was a great addition. I love that she basically lies to him most of the film. It's like, this is not your kid. I was like, no, it is. It's very obviously going to be his kid.
Yeah. Why would there be a kid if it wasn't his? Like,
yeah, exactly.
This doesn't make sense for the plot, but yeah. I thought the kid was good, and I thought that was such a neat addition to add to like a James Bond film. Like, again, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of James Bond, but I don't feel like there have been like many kids in James Bond films because it's not really a film for kids ever.
No, well, I mean, that being said, I watched a lot of Bonds as a little kid, but you're right, and also it the way Bond is written normally, it doesn't fit with his character because usually James Bond is a serial womanizer who just sleeps around and leaves all the time. In the Daniel Craig ones, he is that a lot too, but he is motivated by actual love for Vesper throughout most of the series and falls in love with Madeline Swan too. And it makes more sense for this version that he progresses past that. And
I mean,
you get to see him try to cook breakfast for the little kid, and that was cute.
Yeah, he was like, "Is it good?" Like he was looking at her, like, "Come on, tell me, please. I need to
right.
know." That was a good little piece of humor in there too. I like that. And I think the gadgets were really neat too. You have shown it in here about the gadget. He's got the little wristwatch.
Well, EMP watch, yeah.
The EMP watch. I just kind of wanted to talk about that because I thought that was a great joke. That was a fantastic joke.
Yeah, because it seems to just work without Bond deliberately doing it sometimes, and the guy has the robotic eye, and it blows his brain up. And then what's his line of cue? It's like, just introduce someone to your watch. It really blew their mind.
Yeah, it's like, yes, perfect time to use that terrible joke, but it worked so well. And all the gadgets were neat too. Like I guess I was like one of the only gadgets.
There's Smart Blood, like, the return of Smart Blood, that was from an earlier movie.
The Smart Blood.
Yeah, it's like tracking blood.
Yeah, like the nanotech was kind of neat too, where it's like, oh, once you get it, you can never get rid of it, and it's like, oh, so it's like an STD. That sucks.
Just a virus, man. It's like a virus.
Yeah, it's like a virus that kills you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess we should talk about because it's important for the end. We should talk about the nature of this. It's a nanotech that M and MI6 developed in secret, and Bond lays into M about this, which I really enjoyed too. Like when he's not working for M anymore, he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like you should have shut this down years ago, and you screwed up, and it's out there now. Like what is wrong with you?" I really enjoyed that scene where they're just going at it in their office, and then when he finds out Felix is dead, he's like, "I'm sorry. I know you were close, and he's your friend, and I respected him." Blah blah blah. But yeah, the way it works is you can specify DNA code of who you want to kill and release a gas into the room, and it will only harm that person. Or if someone else is in the room who's related to them, it can harm them. Or if you touch the person it's targeting towards, it will harm them. And interesting little doomsday weapon there. But.
Yeah, it kind of makes me understand why they didn't release this movie during the pandemic, so I'm glad they didn't.
Well, we are still during the pandemic.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
We are in the later stages of it, so it feels a little bit more appropriate now than it would have a year and a half ago or a year ago. That definitely would put me more on edge. But yeah, I think that aspect of like the viral technology was, it was really cool, and I don't think that we've kind of seen that before. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like in a lot of these kinds of like action spy thriller movies, you always have this super powered weapon that's going to destroy the world, and it could either be like a WMD, or it could be like a virus like this, or it could be like some either like an EMP that like offsets the magnetic, like, electromagnetic field of Earth or something like that. It's like something totally out there and totally foreign. So I feel like that's kind of like an overplayed common trope in these kind of like high action formulaic films. But for this one, I think it worked pretty well.
I think it does. And in fairness, too, I think this is the first one in the Craig Bond movies. Because in Casino Royale, I don't think there's any sort of weapon. In Quantum, the guy wants to do a water crisis, like a water shortage crisis. In Skyfall, there may have been one in Skyfall, but I don't think so. I think he's just trying to kill M. And then in Spectre, it's a like surveillance network that they're up against.
Right.
So I think I hear you because you're right, and that's a big trope of the spy movie genre, but I don't think it was in this particular series until now. So, interesting.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I feel like I've just seen it so many times. So, yeah.
Oh, you
it's
have.
good that this... Yeah, I have. Absolutely. We all have. Everyone has. But it's good that this series was like, we're going to use that like one time, and we'll save it for the final, and it's not going to be like crazy spread out there in the world. It's going to be a little bit more contained. So it's not going to give everyone crazy anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been dancing around it enough, and we should talk about the ending.
Yes.
Do you want to give the big spoiler?
Yes, I would love to give this big spoiler. So, he dies.
He does.
James Bond dies at the end of this film. It's very clear. There's no room for interpretation. There's no way he could have survived it. Basically, he's like, send in the missiles. We got to destroy this place. And he can't get off the island in time. He gets delayed by Rami Malek's character and opening the bay doors. And,
well, and more importantly, he gets infected with the nanobots intended to kill Madeline Swan, who is his love and the mother of his child. So, and it would kill the kid too, actually, because relative.
Exactly.
So
if he left,
he would never be able to see them again, and he would put them at risk. So initial like overall thoughts. How do you feel about Bond dying? I don't think this has ever happened.
I don't think it has either. And I'm 100% here for it. I really like this. Like, if you're a fan of this podcast, then I think you probably know that I like it when characters have a final ending. Like, they have a start and an end. That's what I really like. I don't want you to keep using the same character over and over and over and over and over again until I just lose interest in the series. I want, A to B. And that's what I really like about this character, or at this ending, is that it's effective. It's emotionally impactful, too. Because you understand the stakes of it, too. He's making the ultimate sacrifice here. He's falling on his sword for not only the protection of the entire world, but also for his own family. He's saying, I've never really had a family of my own throughout these 5 movies. Like, I've only had some love interests, but my family has been the people I've worked with. And now I finally have someone who I love. I have a little child, and I can't go back to them. I can never see them again.
Right. Like, he finally found something to fill the void that was formed in the first movie, and now he can never interact with them ever again. So it is kind of the natural choice. And it felt almost inevitable at a certain point.
Oh yeah.
It's as soon as they go off on the boat with Nomi, I'm like, oh, Bond's gonna die. He's not getting off this island. And I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, Bond getting a happy definitive ending doesn't feel completely right. I almost feel the same way about John Wick too, because these characters live lives of such horrifying violence. It feels disingenuous to have them get away with it and have a happy ending almost.
Oh, well, absolutely. And I mean, Rami Malek's character in the film, he was talking about this a little bit where he's he's having this intellectual philosophical conversation with James Bond, and they're talking about death and who's willing, who should be allowed to pull the trigger.
Right.
And he's like, you can't possibly unleash like this terrible virus on the world, but he's like, but you kill at will. You kill anyone who like stops you, James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
You are a menace. You have a body count of like a mile long.
Right.
And it's absurd, and that you can get away with this just because you have a license to kill. So I totally agree that James Bond, he doesn't really deserve that kind of ending that is that we want him to have, that hero's
Mm-hmm.
ending of being like, everything's fine, I'm gonna drive off into the sunset and have a happy life. I think you're correct in saying that because of everything that he's done, he does kind of need to die.
Yeah, it's like the sins catch up with him eventually, and he has grown a lot since his introduction. Like, unlike most portrayals of Bond, he does mature and grow a lot, and he's a much more empathetic person by the time of the ending of this movie. But I think it was pretty emotionally powerful to just see or listen to him and Madeline having their final, and even with Q, when he's talking with Q and Q realizes like, oh no, like you can't get off,
Mm-hmm.
can you? And like, I don't know, I felt a lot in that sequence. Even
Me too.
even though like, and even the part at the end where all the MI6 people are drinking and they pour the glass for Bond and leave it on the token or whatever, and then I love, they're all mourning, and then M's just like, okay, back to work, and then they go back to their day to day because they probably experience stuff like this all the time, and it's just this time it happens to be James Bond.
Mm-hmm. And I love that quote that he reads at the end too. It was like, what was it? It was like, a man's purpose is not to just survive. A man's purpose is to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to spend my time just counting the minutes. I'm going to use my time to the fullest.
I like that too.
Yeah, I think it was something along those lines, and I think that was just like such a fitting quote to put in there too, because what do we really know about James Bond? We know these certain set of things, but at the end of the day, it's like, what did he really do? He gave his life for his country. He gave his life for the betterment of humankind, and it's just another day on the job. Another day on the job, and that's just kind of how life is, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was fitting, I think. Fitting and effective. And
Yes.
like you said, no room for interpretation. It's pretty definitive. And
yeah, and I mean, after that entire movie where he was basically being chased around by stormtroopers who couldn't hit shit for shit, they were firing the blasters and they could never get a nice shot on James Bond. It was like, okay, come on, you can only dodge so many bullets.
Yeah.
That
stairway scene. James. That stairway scene was pretty great though, as he's going up to try to get the bay doors open.
That was beautifully shot, and I mean, that was so funny where it's like they toss down a grenade, picks it, throws it back up.
Oh yeah,
they toss
and then
down three more.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, they knew my plan.
Yeah. And speaking of beautifully shot too, because we forgot the forest scene, great. It's when Madeline and the kid are on the run from Remy Malek's people, and they go into this foggy forest, and Bond uses a towing cable to sort of yeet this motorcycle guy off of his bike, and he crushes the dude from Game Night with a car, which is awesome. It was just really tense sequence. Well shot.
It was so well
sound
done,
design
too. Yeah, the sound design was great. I think the shots were great, and it was just neat to see him just use the natural scenery to his advantage, like James Bond should.
Yeah. And the music, as always, James Bond music is always just full of bangers, but just the horns going crazy with the so satisfying.
Yeah, it was cool.
It just builds up.
Satisfying.
It's just this deep musical library of songs from decades worth of movies. So just conjures up emotion right off the bat. It was really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, yeah, let's move off of that maybe, and maybe get to the fan cast time. Do you want to do some fan casting?
Yeah, let's do some final thoughts on the movie itself real quick.
Okay, yeah, let's
then
do that.
jump in.
Let's do that first.
Yeah, I think great conclusion to Daniel Craig's run as the character. I felt a lot coming out of this because, like we talked about earlier, 15 years of my life have been this version of this character, and I've never experienced a beginning to end Bond run before because I'm 26. So that's it was impactful. Like this version of Bond was important for my growth as a film lover, I think. And yeah, it's kind of bittersweet to see it end. What about you? Oh, go see it. It's great.
Oh yes, absolutely go see it. I mean, I think it's a fitting conclusion, like we've been saying, to the 5-film arc. Is it the best one of the 5 films? That's up for debate, I'd say. But I think it's still pretty solid. Daniel Craig got the ending he deserves, and this just feels kind of like a victory lap now. Just let him have his time in the sun. He's earned it. He's done a great James Bond portrayal, and I have very little to complain about with this movie aside from the villain and maybe like the length of the movie. Like, it's just kind of 2.5 hours. It's a long time to sit around.
Yeah, but, it is.
Otherwise, little to nothing to complain about with this film.
Yeah, same. All right, let's have some fun. Let's do fan cast time. You want to do yours first, and then I'll jump in and do mine? I have different categories for mine. So,
well, I mean, we could take this one at a time.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
I think.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, who do we want as the next James Bond? I'd say, Idris Elba has to be in the mix there. I'm such a fan of The Wire. And Idris Elba is such a fantastic actor, and anything that he does, I know that he could crush it. So I think he would be fantastic.
I agree. Idris Elba is amazing. He would be an amazing James Bond. The only caveat I have is he's only 4 years younger than Daniel Craig right now.
Yes.
So Barbara Broccoli has said that they're not even going to start looking for another year. So by the time they made the movie, he would be probably as old as, if not older than Daniel Craig. But if it were a different time, or if they don't care and Idris Elba doesn't care, go for it. I just know that Daniel Craig talked about, like, he's sustained multiple injuries from doing these movies, and, you don't want to, like, start a guy who's 50 as an action hero necessarily, because it's like, then you're limiting your potential run. But if they do what you were saying earlier, like one-offs, go for it. You could even have him be M at some point. He would be a great M too.
Yeah. Oh yes. Or even like Felix, like the CIA counterpart or something like that. Like, he would be great in that.
A role that requires like less stunt work would be great, just considering the age. Not to be ageist or anything, but like, your body starts wearing down a little bit. It's the same for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would say, some of my first picks here like are definitely like trying to get out of that, like the white cis male who is just always James Bond, going back to Sean Connery, it's always been a white guy. Yeah. And, that's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But this is James Bond. Like, this is a story for everyone. Why does it have to just be like the same, like, cardboard cutout white guy? Like, I feel like it could be somebody else, just like some good diversity in there, because everyone deserves to be represented. Exactly.
And I feel like with James Bond too, the mechanism for doing that is built into the way these movies are made, because we've had 6 James Bonds now, I think. So it's like every few years you cast a new one. This is the character most opportune to have a totally different like piece of representation each time. And you can wildly reinvent a lot about Bond every time you cast a new one. So why not take advantage of that? Like, we've had 6 pretty similar Bonds. Like, Daniel Craig is probably the most distinct, I would say, because he's more sort of just blunt than the others. But you can do so much more. That being said, one of my I have 3 or 2 categories, I guess. One, traditional picks, and then more changing it up picks. So my first traditional pick is Tom Hiddleston, Loki. I think he would be a lot of fun if they wanted to go back to the like a more Connery version, like a sort of wink and a smile, ordering the martini Bond. I think he would be a good one for that.
Yeah, he's very suave. He's very smooth, and everyone likes a Loki. So maybe they could even tie it into the MCU.
No, shut up. No,
no, please don't. Please, don't.
No, please, definitely do not. All right, go for it.
Yeah, let's trade off. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think one of my other choices would be like Michael B. Jordan. I think he's a talented actor. I love him as Killmonger. I still need to see Creed, but and the other stuff I've seen him in, he's always a good actor, and he's very attractive. Honestly, he's a very attractive, very handsome man. So that's like 3 boxes right there, just like checked off. So I think he'd be a good one.
He is American, which would make a lot of people very upset, but.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But on the subject of American actors who would have been great James Bonds, I think Chadwick Boseman would have been great. But sadly,
yes, 100%.
No longer with us. But I'm going to do the other ones of my like traditional picks real quick, just all 3 of them. I think Michael Fassbender, same issue as Idris Elba, though. He's just a couple years younger than Idris. But I think everybody had the same thought in X-Men First Class when he's hunting down the Nazis. It's like, this feels very Bond. And I agree, it did. Also, Henry Cavill, we saw him as Napoleon Solo in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I thought he was fun in that, and so I could see a lot of Bond from that alone. Also, Richard Madden, Rob Stark, is another sort of option. Soon to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well himself. But those are my traditional picks, so I'll throw it back to you, and then I'll do my more changing it up options.
I could totally see that, and I have one traditional pick. I'd say like Tom Hardy, maybe. I could see him doing well in that role, but he's already kind of like the leading man in a lot of things.
He
like
is.
Even with Venom, I feel like he's already got kind of his role in Hollywood kind of sculpted up, but that's not to say that he wouldn't be a bad James Bond. But yeah. What about you? You got another one?
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya, the main character in Get Out. I think he would be really great.
Oh yeah, I can see that. He's definitely got like the. He's definitely young, so he could play that role. He could play that role for years. Yeah, he could be the next one for sure. I put Dave Patel on my list as well.
Okay.
He was the Green Knight. For those that you don't know, he was the guy in the Green Knight. I think he has expressed like disinterest in playing it, so I don't think he'll do it. But in my head, I think he would be a great choice for that role. Like he would look so suave, he would look so smooth, and oh my gosh, I just think he's a great actor too.
So my last pick, I know many people have said that Bond has to be a man. I don't care what they said, and I think one of my picks is Keira Knightley. I think that would be interesting, and I think it would be very an interesting spin of if you changed nothing about Bond's personality, still serial womanizer, but female. Why not?
Why not? I'm all for that.
Oh, I also put Riz Ahmed in there. He's the pilot from Rogue One. He's also the villain in the first Venom, and so he I think could be good too. He's a great actor. And then obviously we talked about the last option already, but you wrote her down as well, Lashana Lynch, and just continue on as not James Bond but 007 option as well.
Yeah, exactly, and I think she already did a good job in this movie. Like she's already proved she can do it. Like I feel like they should just listen to the fans. Like what's the reception with her character per se, and then just maybe make a decision from there. Moving forward, because it would be so easy to just transition into another like series of films with her as the lead. You already have the main crews there. You've already established her. Like, there's a lot that you could do with her.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be careful about listening to the fans too much on this specific subject.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I think it would be not smart of them to not consider her as a potential new lead. I think they should at least entertain the idea. So
Yeah. I guess we already kind of talked about this too. But like, for the next films, how would you like to see it? Would you like it to kind of continue with this Daniel Craig take that's like kind of more modern and that kind of approach that's like a little bit more hyper realistic, or would you kind of like to see it in a different way, maybe a return to the old norm, like the traditional kind of display, like Sean Connery, or would you like to do kind of like the idea that we were talking about earlier,
a period
where it
piece,
was just like one character,
one
Bond?
I would not mind that. I also think a period piece could be cool. I would say I'd like the return of the outlandish gadgets and stuff too, but the problem is there's Kingsman, and Kingsman is doing that.
Yes.
In the first movie, very well. So I don't think you want to do exactly the same thing between Bond and Kingsman. And I know Kingsman obviously owes a lot to Bond, but it's it's kind of king of the castle in that specific realm of the spy genre. So maybe diversify yourself from that. And I think a period piece, although Kingsman's doing a period piece too. So
yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I think they'll find a way. We've gotten 15 years of the down-to-earth Bond, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see... Maybe it's just because I'm coming off of What If and Star Wars Visions, but like an anthology kind of approach to Bond I think would be fun, where maybe it's a Bond that's like, a period piece from like the 1940s or something like that, or the 1950s, or maybe it's a different kind of Bond that's like not necessarily with MI6, but maybe it's like, I don't know, with Russia's intelligence agency or something like that, or like something that's like a little bit more diverse in just like how they tell the story. But the sky's the limit with what they can do, and I'm sure that whatever they do next, we've got at least a year to wait to see what they got in store.
Yeah, I mean, we won't see a movie for probably half a decade. So
yeah. Oh well. Well, otherwise, do you have anything else to say about No Time to Die?
I do not. I think we've covered it. I think it's time to talk some other stuff. What have you been?
Other stuff.
What have you been consuming? What media? Oh, and also we're recording this early on October 11th. So if there's something new that's come out before this episode, we haven't seen it probably.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said in the last episode, I finished up Squid Game, which was lots of fun. We actually had one of our show's followers. Actually, he just reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to see an episode about Squid Game." So we might do that in the near future. May not happen super soon, so we might miss the hype a little bit on it. But I think that we are planning to maybe talk about that sometime down the line. Been watching Last Week Tonight as well. Just watched the most recent episode on
I watched that
misinformation.
Earlier today. Watched that earlier today. This was very misinformation in the non-English speaking communities is pretty upsetting.
It's every episode is pretty upsetting, but they're eye-opening, and it's good to get that kind of context, different news sources and stuff like that. And I've been just getting through Mistborn a little bit at a time as well, and I do tend to rewatch shows, so I'm going to try and not repeat all the shows that I've been rewatching. But I've been rewatching It's Always Sunny, as always.
Yeah.
How about you, Dylan?
Well, not media, but I want to share it anyway because it made me happy. I spent 2 hours yesterday doing wire management, and I got all of the wires and power strips off my floor and mounted to the bottom of my desk, and it looks beautiful. But in terms of actual content, I've been playing a lot of New World, and I'm having a great time with it. The only thing I need is friends to play it with. So gotta get that put together because it's a very PvP focused game, and I'm just having to group up with randos right now and do my own thing, which is fine. We'll get there. We'll get a group together. But I've been continuing the Sandman. I think I finished the main story this morning, but I have 4 books left. So I think Gaiman wrote sort of side stories or adventures, and I'm just following the reading order of the box set. But I think I finished the main story, and it was fucking beautiful. It's the best comic I've read so far. I think it really Yeah, and I'm relatively new to comics, I will say, but I think the Sandman really demonstrates the height to which comics can go, and a lot of the authors who write intros to the various volumes say this, but like any literary critic who is too snobbish to consider the Sandman one of the great works of like modern literature is in reality a fool. it's like a masterfully told story. I watched last night the Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf Netflix anime movie.
How was that?
It was pretty good. It had a lot of the same issues for me that I had with both Castlevania Season 4 and the Blood of Zeus show, the Netflix anime like circuit, I guess, where it's like some stuff just kind of comes out of nowhere, or character motivation seemed to flip or revealed didn't quite land and just made the structure more confusing than it needed to be. But overall, it was a good movie. It focuses on a young Vesemir, who, for anyone not familiar with the Witcher lore, Vesemir in the main story is the older Witcher. He's sort of the mentor for Geralt and the other current generation of Witchers. So this focuses on him as both a child and a young Witcher and his adventures. And I liked it. It was a solid movie, and it's not too long. It's like an hour 20 minutes. But
nice. Yeah, I need to watch that still.
It's a great holdover until the season 2 comes out in December, and I guess it's a good primer for non-longtime fans to introduce them to Vesemir as a character, because he's a pretty key figure in the lives of the main characters. So, but yeah,
gotcha. Well, there we go. Episode 20 is in the books.
Yep.
But thank you guys for listening so much. We really appreciate all of our listeners and everyone who's tuning in to the episodes, downloading them, doing all that stuff. We really appreciate it. So if you're liking the show so far, please like and follow our podcast, like and subscribe, I guess.
Yeah. If you're on audio platforms, just give us a follow and or subscribe. I guess it's subscribe on those too, and share with people. That's how we grow. We got some like decent listens this week. I was happy with that. So thank you all for hopping on board. If you're new, welcome to the show. If you want to reach us, at some point we'd like to do an audience question segment. We haven't gotten any yet though. So if you want to reach our show, shoot an email over to playpauserewindpod@gmail.com or hashtag on Twitter, #playpauserewindpod, and we will gather up questions, I guess, from those if they ever come in, and we can answer them on the show. We also have an Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow along on those. And Niles, where can people find you specifically online?
People can find me on Instagram at NilesGotNoStyles. Dylan, what about you? Where can people find you online?
On Twitter at D-Day Movies, on Instagram at DylanD1026, on YouTube at D-Day Movies, and on Twitch at D-Day_movies. All of our social information and the show's information are linked down below in the description. And one more thing we should mention before we sign off. The IATSE is readying to strike, and that's basically a lot of the crew who work on movies and TVs, and basically they have failed, or not they, but the contract talks so far have failed. So they are getting ready for a massive industry-wide strike. So what that means for us as viewers is some things we're looking forward to, maybe push back a little bit. But what you should remember is this is very important. All they're asking for, really, is some time off. So stand in solidarity with them. Don't yell at people online because movies are getting delayed if that happens. This is part of the process, and it's important. And a lot of filmmakers and actors and stuff that you love are standing with them. So if you, in my opinion, if you want to do the right thing, you should stand with them too. And if I can find any resources for how you can help, I'll put it in the description. But if not, the internet is your oyster. Go find it. But Yeah, I just wanted to plug that
Right.
Real quick. And also,
No, glad you did.
next episode of the show, I think, is going to be Dune, and that'll come out in a bit. So we'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great one.